On Thursday, October 21st, 2021, at approximately 1:50 Mountain Time, actor and producer Alec Baldwin discharged a prop gun, resulting in the death of one crew member and injuring another while on the set of the upcoming film Rust. The accidental shooting took place at the Bonanza Creek Ranch near Santa Fe, New Mexico, a site often used for Western film and TV show productions. Director of photography Halyna Hutchins ended up needing to be rushed to surgery because of her injuries, but sadly, she didn't make it. She was only 42 and was both a wife and mother. The director of the film, Joel Souza, was rushed to the hospital via ambulance and received emergency care and was released later that evening. Alec Baldwin made his first public statement after the shooting on Friday. He shared he was heartbroken and had no words that could convey his shock or sadness. He went on to explain he is fully cooperating with police investigations as they address how the tragedy occurred, and he was in contact with Hutchins' husband. Join us as we take a look at a few other incidents where actors and crew members were killed or injured by prop weapons. Brandon Lee on the set of The Crow. One of the most infamous film set accidents occurred on the set of the cult gothic superhero film The Crow in 1993. Actor Brandon Lee, the son of Bruce Lee, was killed when a prop gun loaded with a dummy round misfired and struck him in the stomach, hitting his aorta. The scene that was being filmed when the accident took place involved Lee's character walking in on a group of gang members as they were murdering his fiancée on the eve of their wedding. When the killers saw Lee, they were supposed to shoot him. Reportedly, a series of unfortunate yet preventable mistakes led to the dummy cartridge getting jammed in the barrel of the gun. Michael Massey was the actor who fired the gun, and because the cartridge was stuck in the barrel, it fired just as an actual gun would have. Lee was rushed to the hospital and underwent hours of surgery, but he didn't make it. The movie was completed using a stunt double and CGI. John Eric Hexum on the set of Cover Up. On October 12, 1984, the cast and crew of the CBS Adventure TV series Cover Up were shooting the 7th episode, Golden Opportunity, at the 20th Century Fox lot. Hexum's character had a scene that required him to load bullets into a .44 Magnum handgun, and he was given a functional gun and blanks. After the scene didn't play out as the director wanted, there was a delay in filming. Hexum became irritable and restless and began horsing around to lighten the mood. At one point, he unloaded the gun, except for one blank round, and pretended to play Russian roulette. After spinning it, he put the gun to his head and pulled the trigger, completely unaware he was putting himself in great danger, because even though prop weapons don't actually shoot real rounds, they still release a tremendous amount of energy. When Hexum discharged the prop gun, the blank cartridge managed to exert enough force to shatter a quarter-sized section of his skull and lodge those pieces into his brain, resulting in severe hemorrhaging. Hexum was immediately rushed to Beverly Hills Medical Center, where he underwent extensive surgery. Sadly, just 6 days later, he was declared brain dead. Hexum's organs were then donated to people in need and ended up saving several lives. Hey, if you're enjoying this video so far, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to Facts First for more. And stay tuned to learn about one of the worst on-set deaths in Hollywood history. Vic Morrow on the set of The Twilight Zone. In 1982, Morrow, who was previously one of the leads on the ABC drama series Combat, was cast in a starring role in Twilight Zone the movie. Morrow was set to portray Bill Connor, a racist bigot who travels back in time and is put into a variety of situations where he would be the persecuted victim of intolerance and hate. In the early morning of July 23, 1982, while on location in California, in a place known as Indian Dunes, not far from Santa Clarita, Morrow and 2 other actors were performing in a scene where their characters would attempt to escape a deserted village in Vietnam as they were pursued by a U.S. Army helicopter. The helicopter was reportedly hovering 24 feet above them when the flames of a pyrotechnic explosion damaged the copter's rotor blades, causing it to come crashing down on top of Morrow and the other 2 actors, killing all 3 instantly. Morrow and 7-year-old actor Micah Din Lee were decapitated and torn apart by the helicopter blades, while 6-year-old Renee Shin Yi Chen was crushed to death by a helicopter skid. The parents of Chen and Lee sued the film studio, and the case was settled out of court for an undisclosed amount of money. Morrow's daughters also sued the studio and settled out of court. Antonio Velasco Gutierrez on the set of Revenge of the Scorpion. Gutierrez might not be a name you recognize, but he was an extra who worked in Mexico's direct-to-video film industry. He was killed after being shot twice by real .38 caliber handgun bullets while filming a scene for the film Revenge of the Scorpion in 2003. He was 42. Reportedly, the gun was supposed to be loaded with blanks, but somehow real bullets ended up in its chamber. The film's property master, who goes by the name The Brush, was wanted for questioning by law enforcement after fleeing the scene after the shooting. Brendan Fletcher on the set of the TV series Cardinal. Fletcher had to be hospitalized after being shot in the throat by a gun that was supposed to be emptied of blanks, but obviously hadn't been. The accident happened when Fletcher's character on the Canadian TV series was supposed to be shot in the mouth. The actor ended up suffering a laceration and burns to his mouth, jaw, and throat area. Reportedly, the blank that had been fired had no paper or plastic wadding. Daigo Kashino on the set of a Japanese play. Kashino and a fellow actor were rehearsing a scene from a play they were both set to appear in when he was accidentally stabbed in the stomach with a samurai sword. He was rushed to the hospital but sadly died. He was only 33. When he was pierced through the abdomen, the other actors heard him let out a low groan. When they turned to look, they discovered him hunched over and bleeding. Frustratingly, no one saw what exactly happened. Harry Barnes on the set of The General. Barnes was the assistant director on the 1926 Buster Keaton feature The General. He was shot in the face with a blank round while filming in Oregon. Luckily, he was not in close range when the weapon discharged and wasn't injured very badly. He got lucky once again when he survived an incident that involved a prop cannon that discharged while he was standing too close. He was knocked unconscious but made a full recovery. Charles Chandler on the set of The Captive. Chandler was an extra who was killed when he was shot in the head by a rifle while filming Cecil B. DeMille's 1915 film The Captive. The gun was supposed to be loaded with blanks, but it still had a live round in its chamber. The accident happened while filming a scene where a group of soldiers shot down a door. DeMille had them use live rounds for the first shot, but instructed them to swap out their rounds for blanks. That's when the deadly mix-up happened. Now it's time to hear from you. Which of these was the most shocking to hear about? Let us know in the comments section below. And before you go, make sure you give this video a like and subscribe to FactsVerse if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all our latest content.